All aboard your tech and games caboose. We have some Samsung S10 hands-on video, looks like, and some renders for the G8 ThinQ. And for games, we'll have some Metro reviews and Red Dead's update, plus more. So let's jump into the Samsung hands-on video leak, it looks like. So this is a screen protector, it looks like, and the hole is there just because it looks like an earlier prototype where there's some issues, but it looks like some of the comments mentioned that should be fixed with other screen cases. So we're getting to see hands-on pretty early, it looks like. And if you look real close, it says February 23rd. So it looks like we're in the future a little bit here. And this was posted by Mobile Fun on their YouTube channel. So pretty interesting to see some hands-on this early. And we also get to see a bunch of the specs for this. Was released actually yesterday. And we get to see a whole spec sheet, and it mentions the 3 different cameras that we kind of already knew a little bit about: a 12 megapixel 45 degree telephoto lens, a 12 megapixel regular style camera, and a 16 megapixel ultra wide 123 degrees of field of view. So pretty wide there. And the newer stuff we're kind of seeing is the first selfie camera to capture 4K video. So you can get yourself in some 4K video. And it looks like Nokia might want to argue with that, whether or not they have one or not. And here's the actual spec sheets. So some of the specs we get to see are they're super slow-mo. It looks like they're doubling the speeds, doubling the actual record duration. So I believe it's like 480 FPS and like a 30 times slow motion. So it'll put out a 14.8 second video with only 0.4 seconds of recording. You need pretty good lighting to get some good shots with this, but outdoors it does some really good slow motion stuff, or just good lighting. So, and then 0.8 seconds will give you a 30-second clip. So you have to time your shots, but it'll be easier now that it's twice the recording length. So pretty interesting. And then we get some specs: 12 gigabytes of RAM. That's looking like one of the top most RAM in a phone, and then 1 terabyte of internal storage. We did get some mentions of this, of Samsung actually, I believe, producing it, 1 terabyte for phones. So I believe this is going to be one of the first phones we get 1 terabyte of internal storage. And then screen sizes, 6.3 inches for the S10 Plus, and then 6.1 inches for the regular version, and then the E model is 5.8 it looks like. So pretty interesting. And then some more camera features that gets mentioned down here: zoom effect, color point effect, and spin effect. I'm not sure if these were on any of the previous camera app for Samsung, so these could be some new features. Spin effect could be interesting. We'll see what happens there. But there's a bunch more specs you can check out, and pretty much everything's been leaked so far, and that means that you can reserve one. So Samsung is letting you get early access to pre-ordering the phone. So this could save you up to $550 with trade-in. And then you'll get it delivered by March 8th, and then this is the early access pre-order. And the big bonus here of doing the early access, it looks like, is the $50 instant credit on accessories. So you'll just basically get an extra $50 if you're looking at some of the accessories. So the trade-in values, just real quick, for some of the Samsung ones are the Note 9, S9 Plus, and S9 all get you $550, and then some of the lower end models, an S7 all the way to a Note 5 will get you $150. And then they got trade-in values for different Apple phones and stuff, and you can pick which carrier you want, or unlocked. So you can reserve it pre-ordering early, which is kind of interesting, and for a phone that you don't really know, but we kind of already know because it's been leaked so much. So pretty interesting. Samsung is doing that. And then we have the LG G8 ThinQ leaks out in all its glory. We get some press renders from Evan Blast, posted this on Twitter. So we get to see some real close shots. Here's them zoomed in even more. Got a little 2 eyeballs and a mouth for fingerprint reader. And then here's a little bit of the notch you can see. Some of the colors kind of blended in a little bit with that photo. We get some side shots, looks like SIM card. And there is a headphone jack if you were looking at the G8 ThinQ, so that's still there. And then there's a couple more specs that they have. Here's a little picture, true. And then they have some more specs on Phone Arena detailing this. It looks like a 6.1 inch OLED display. And then we're looking at a recent report of a new device packs a 3,400 milliamp hour battery. So pretty good specs. Snapdragon 855 is the top of the line specs pretty much. So that is your phone leaks for today in tech news. quite a bit's going on with that, with the Mobile World Congress coming up, and everything will be revealed there by the actual companies. And that leads us into some game news. So we get Metro Exodus reviews are out. This one is from IGN, and it looks like it's pretty story driven like some of the others. And then a good quote: Metro Exodus successfully manages to put you in wide open spaces without ever giving you much room to breathe. So it looks like that is the consensus from this IGN review, and they score an 8.5. Brings its survival horror to the surface without sacrificing any of the series' signature tension. So I'm not going to talk too much about that, but Metacritic also posted a list of scores. So PS4 got 80 all the way to PC with an 83 score. This is based on a ton of different reviews, so check out your favorite review online. And that leads us into some more Metro-y stuff. So NVIDIA got their drivers, their 4.18.91 WHQL drivers out. So that's adding ray tracing and DLSS to both Metro Exodus, coming out on the 15th. So 2 more days till you actually can play. And then also Battlefield, we mentioned that in patch notes yesterday, they got DLSS support. So a performance increase there. So cool. And then specifically, they mentioned up to 40% better frame rates in DLSS for Battlefield 5. And then for Metro Exodus, we'll talk a little bit more about again. There's some PC specs, a lot of the newer games. Division 2 and now Metro Exodus is looking at 11 gigabytes of VRAM if you want to play at 4K 60 FPS. So you're going to need like a 2080 Ti for RTX, or possibly the R7 with its 12 gigabytes of VRAM. So interesting to see the VRAM being pushed. And then here's some actual DLSS recommendations basically. Here's a recommended what settings you'll want for putting ray tracing on when you're playing Metro Exodus. So for the 2080 Ti, you'll be able to play at 4K with Ultra, and then DLSS on. This gives you the performance. I believe they said around the 30% or so when you're playing with DLSS with Metro. And then you'll want to jump down to 1440p at the 2080 cards. You'll still get Ultra, and then you'll jump down to medium settings on the 27, and then high for the graphics presets for other settings on the 2060, so you have to jump down a little bit more. And that should get you around 60 FPS, I believe was the number people were looking at. The reference was 60. I drew that pretty bad. So here is some actual 46 versus 64 for Battlefield. This is the performance for Battlefield. Jumping back over to a different game. So pretty interesting. And then if you want to actually check out some ray tracing differences for Metro, Gamers Nexus does a whole 28-minute video comparing RTX on and off. And somewhere in the video he mentions it's basically hit and miss. There's some good effects, and then there's some other spaces where it just doesn't really do too well. And then there's a pretty big performance hit, which you'll obviously want to enable DLSS on. So with ray tracing off, you get a silhouette-y style character. The light isn't able to reflect off the snow, whereas previously you could see him a little bit more lit up as a character model. And you'll see his face actually be lighter on one side and then darker when he's being covered a little bit by the train, and the light's reflecting from this side. So ray tracing, pretty good in certain aspects, and with reflections it's also pretty apparent. So interesting ray tracing stuff for Metro Exodus. And also one more little thing, Unreal Engine adds ray tracing support, giving NVIDIA RTX GPUs a shot in the arm. So what we're seeing here is there's been a lot of excitement about ray tracing. So the 2 games that got it today, or the game that got it today, there's 4 games with ray tracing now it looks like, which is Battlefield, Metro Exodus, in 2 days at least. And then also there is a Justice Chinese MMO that has it. And then Quake 2, an old style game, has some ray path tracing as well. So basically 4 games with that. And I'm not sure how many games have DLSS now, a couple. So that's interesting. So the latest preview version of Unreal Engine 4 includes both low-level and high-level support for ray tracing, which means thousands of developers who use Epic's engine should now be able to implement the fancy new reflection tech relatively easily. So we'll see how fast this can catch on. A couple months we'll see more games jumping into it. So hopefully that'll be good for ray tracing and your $1,000+ RTX 2080 Ti. And that leads us into some actual game news updates, with Rockstar's Red Dead Online beta getting an update on February 26th. So that is in just about 2 or so weeks, 1 to 2 weeks. And we get to see a couple of cool things here. They previously teased a little bit of this, but player visibility is going to get some changes. So in your map position, you won't be displayed to other players unless you are nearby within 150 meters, or unless you're over that and you're firing your weapon, so a little blip will come up and people will be able to see you from shooting weapons. And then also they're doing some highlighting of overly aggressively players. So if you're killing a lot of people, if you're killing horses and stuff, it looks like you'll be able to be marked further out than 150 meters. And that will also change your little color from a blue all the way to dark red, depending on how aggressive you are. So you'll get some bounty hunters coming after you basically. And they're also changing a little bit of the systems, the posse-wide parlay system, and improving feuds. So the posse-wide parlay system, so after a parlay that applies to attacker's entire posse after killing just a single player. So a little bit less griefing and stuff going on here. And then feuds can be a little bit more easily triggered when after one person gets killed, then you can start your feuding. Pretty intense PvP stuff going on there. And then bounty hunters and law get some balance. Daily challenges you'll be able to start to be able to do, so you'll get some gold nuggets and XP from a bunch of wide-ranging activities of foraging herbs, fencing items, hunting, skinning, cleaning out hideouts, and winning feuds, which we just mentioned. So some daily stuff to get your grind going. And then there's some other fixes and balances. They're changing the varmint rifle to bring it in line with the accuracy compared to other long-arm weapons. And then voice chat will be reduced a little bit for proximity wise. People won't be able to hear you too far away. So that's that for game stuff. And then Nintendo Direct is having a live stream in just 47 minutes. We may or may not do an extra video today if anything good pops out, like Fire Emblem Three Houses details. So get hyped for some more game news today. With that, we will have another episode tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific. And again, maybe an extra episode. And we'll be signing out. Pew, 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 pew.